the conservatives, like maybe 20 years ago, started assigning themselves the idea of human rights or like, public policy and things like that, there would probably been a switch around for the conservative movement to be more actually the radical people.
Do you mean like the Civil Rights Act or like
Civil Rights
Emancipation Proclamation, freedom of speech?
So, it just sounds like she's very confused on this. She doesn't really know a lot about this topic.
Madison, like the town.
Allow me to assert the premise today, which is that today, especially in 2025, I am presupposing that predominantly the political violence right now is coming from the left, setting a tenor and tone where everything you see here today is necessary. And if you disagree with that, you're more than welcome to change my mind.
Yeah.
All right, so which part of that, the left is predominantly responsible for the tone of political violence today, do you disagree with?
Well, I have to think that we first have to consider how many people are on the left and what is the true ideology and mythos behind this new occurrence of violence that we see with the left.
Okay.
Of course, there's potential skews of media. I don't doubt that crime is not happening, but how many people are truly committing crime out of the sake of leftism or out of the sake of radicalism, or could it be plastered on there just to get this ball rolling out there?
So this video is Steven Crowder, and the whole premise of this video is him saying that the left is violent and that the majority of political violence just comes from the left. And he's debating college students, which is, good to see. A lot more conservatives are going out now that Charlie Kirk is no longer able to, and they're going back to college campuses. But yeah, he said that the left is violent. They've committed violent acts. I personally don't necessarily agree that the left is more inherently politically violent. However, I'm interested to see what points he has and what points she has. But let's get into it.
The only other question that I had, a personal question about you, is, and it's a tough one.
Well, is it related to the topic?
It is.
Okay.
Would Jesus be on the left or the right?
Well, that's a conversation for another day. We talk about that in church quite a bit. I don't necessarily know that he would fit within the current American left-right paradigm. But I will tell you one thing. Jesus would certainly be against political violence as a form of intimidation or coercion. It seems to me like, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're not disagreeing with the idea, the uptick that there is an increase in political violence from the quote-unquote left. You're just not sure if you'd define them as left?
Partially, yeah. I just don't necessarily want to just assign political violence or terrorism directly to the left, because we see political violence across the world in forms of autocratic or conservative ideologies. So maybe China is a really good example. Arguably Russia,
of leftist violence?
Of leftist violence, especially. Or, well, no, autocratic and conservative violence.
China would be conservative?
I would believe so, because they're an autocracy. So they have to practice conservative ideologies to obtain, they can't liberate their people. That's what the left is. That's what liberation is.
Well, I don't know how familiar you are with the CCP, but they're communist. And they did so under the guise of liberating people. And then, of course, you don't actually have any democratically held elections again. So they are communist. They've done so to liberate people, namely from the decadence, the quote-unquote shackles of the Western world. I'm just a little bit, I guess, flummoxed as to how you would define communist China, the Communist Chinese Party, as right-wing.
Well, because when Marx wrote his communist ideologies, it was conservative-based. He didn't enjoy other people.
Is she talking about Karl Marx? And I think she's representing, she's trying to relate to Marxism, but I'm a little confused by that. Also, the Chinese Communist Party, they wouldn't represent American conservative policies or American conservative beliefs. America has majority a two-party system, leftist and conservative, or Democrat and Republican. And trying to say that China's party would be the equivalent of the American Conservative Party, to me, it's just kind of confusing, considering that a big aspect of China's party is communism. And that's like almost the antithesis of a lot of conservative beliefs. And then she's bringing up Marxism. I don't know. But what do y'all think?
he wanted to eliminate races.
What does it have to do with
It
conservatism?
has to do with human rights, because conservatism isn't looking to liberate people from or define human rights. It's looking to remove human rights. Conserving the beliefs of the state and conserving the beliefs of elitism.
Okay, so what if your premise is flawed? So what if conservatism, and I understand, by the way, I agree with you, it means different things across. For example, conservative in the UK. In Canada, you're basically a liberal or a liberal separatist. There's no real conservative party. But in the United States, it's not about conserving the state. As a matter of fact, our Constitution is very unique in that it said the state doesn't grant any rights. So it's preserving the Constitution where you are granted unalienable rights, meaning birthrights, by God. And the state only serves to recognize those rights and protect them. And so if the state ever infringes upon the rights that are naturally yours by birthright...
But who assigned natural rights?
Well, the founding fathers who would be conservative. But natural rights being...
Republican?
Well, this was before the Republican Party.
Am I correct?
This is the Republican Party.
Yeah.
But I'm just confused. So you would say that communist China, conservative.
I would say it's autocracy that uses conservative.
Okay. But how is that conservative? For example, you say doing away with races. How is that conservative?
It conserves their power over the state or over the nation.
So you believe that conservatives want the state to have more power? I
think that we define conservative beliefs by our Republican values. But conservatism across the globe looks very different.
Okay. Well, I agree that different parties, because there's also the Conservative Party, for example, whereas here it's the Republican Party. We're talking about conservatism in the United States. It seems to me that your presupposition is that conservatives, Republicans want more state control, want more government power, as opposed to the Democrat Party, liberals. Okay. That would apply over health care, what you can eat, what you can drive, taxes. They're more left, they're more liberal, more open-minded on the left with those policies. Okay, I would just disagree with that, considering if you just look at marginal tax rates and you look at gun policy, you look at speech policy, you look at energy policy, what you can drive. But going back to political violence, you said you wouldn't want to ascribe the uptick that we both recognize, political violence to the left. What would be required for it to be ascribed to the left? What if they said it was? Like, what if someone's...
I would say, like, I'm looking at this globally.
Well, let's talk about here in the United States, because that's what we're discussing. Yeah. Like, what I'm asking you is, what would be required if someone were to commit an act of political violence and you consider it on the left? What if they said it's because they're on the left? Would that count?
I would say so, no.
No.
I think if somebody is doing an act in towards the left, what side of the left and why? Because what we refer to as the left is now a religion and ideology.
I would agree with that.
This is a secular movement.
Secular humanism,
and,
yeah.
Well, you can really say demonic too, because like a lot of those people are nuts. And to try to return back to their liberalist state, because in some ways liberalists believe that they've been robbed of human rights. It's a radicalism of people that, honestly, if the conservatives, like maybe 20 years ago, started assigning themselves the idea of human rights or like, public policy and things like that, there would probably have been a switch around for the conservative movement to be more actually the radical people.
Do you mean like the Civil Rights Act or like
Civil Rights
Emancipation Proclamation, freedom of speech?
So, it just sounds like she's very confused on this. She doesn't really know a lot about this topic. First, she said that I don't even understand how we got on the topic of the Chinese Communist Party when we're talking about American violence. But I will say Steven Crowder didn't specify if he's referring to America, but we're talking about America, bro. Why does she bring up China, and what is she talking about now? He's kind of giving her tutor lessons and trying to like give her advice on her argument, which isn't the best look. It's really not the best look. But what do y'all think about this?
Policy, Section 230, Second Amendment, do you mean those kinds of rights?
Those kinds of rights, but
if the right had been spearheading those?
And probably a little bit more socialist ideas. But of course...
Well, it's not just change the definitions, right? What you can't do, or I would disagree with doing, is saying racist means conservative, because it doesn't, right? Most slaveholders would be Democrat, and I know we would talk about how the parties have switched. You can't say KKK equal, those would be largely Democrats. There's nothing conservative about racism. there's nothing.
Again, I think that we're
so that's
assigning
or saying that
Republican parties
Yeah.
and Democratic parties. When
That's one thing I definitely agree on. Well, I'm going to agree on this specific sentence. There's nothing conservative about racism in that conservatives aren't inherently more racist than liberals. I think that's a manipulation tactic that people spread, and I don't think being conservative automatically means that you're 100% more racist, because this statement will then imply that people who are liberal or leftist are automatically less racist. And I don't think that's true. I think there are racist people who do racist things. There are racist policies. There are racist ideologies that exist. And your party, your specific belief system doesn't automatically make you racist. I think that should just be common sense, but what do y'all think about it?
That's what we're doing. We're discussing it here in the States.
An assignment of Republican, because if you want to argue that Republicans were liberating people, wouldn't that constitute as a left nowadays?
Why would that be left?
Because they're liberating people from slavery, and it's a Republican mindset. We don't.
No, I don't see how that would be left at all. As a matter of fact, I think your fundamental flaw that I would argue is this idea that the left is more concerned with individual liberty. That makes sense why you would ascribe conservatism to communism. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone who agrees with you. But right now, on the political violence, let me ask you this.
Karl Marx, he was a conservative.
Wanted to do away with the nuclear family, wanted to seize the means of production and distribution. I just won't agree with you that anything about that is conservative. The political violence, the assassination of Charlie Kirk.
Confusing conservative with Republican ideals. And
Okay.
The Republican ideal is to protect the family. In some ways, you could say it's conservative.
Sure,
family,
yeah,
but
conservative,
again,
and
that is
Karl Marx wanted the state to be in charge of the family.
That is the American perspective on conservatism.
Okay.
But the arrival, like what is liberalism, what is conservatism, we can't assign it to American Republican Party or Democratic Party, because people hold left-leaning views in the Republican Party.
Sure.
We can say that Republicans want to liberate the world from war nowadays, at least with Donald Trump's administration, and that the Democratic Party wanted to do more war in, what was it, like Bush's era? Right? So what is the confusing?
Well, did you say Bush was a Republican? But I would agree with you.
Maybe is it Clinton? Clinton was.
Yeah,
Democrat?
I mean, I will say this: all presidents have been more pro-war than how they campaigned, with the exception of Donald Trump. I think we would agree on that. Political violence, the assassination of Charlie Kirk in cold blood. Would that be leftist political violence?
I think that was a Satanist.
Okay. Darrell Brooks, Waukesha, running people over. He's a black supremacist who wanted to kill cops and white people. Would that be leftist political violence?
And he is a part of the BLM or black supremacy movement.
And would you not consider that among the left? Antifa, would that be considered among the left?
I think.
And then when he brought up the reason I said I disagree earlier is because he mentioned Charlie Kirk, and the person who murdered Charlie Kirk may be left, but it is not 100% confirmed if he's left. And I don't want to get into the practice, and I'm not saying he is left or he isn't left, but I'm going to not get into the practice of spreading propaganda. So he may be, not saying he's not, or they may be not saying they're not, but spreading propaganda, which is not 100% confirmed, and saying, oh yeah, they're a leftist. You don't know that. You don't know that. You don't have any like statements from this person. There's no exact motive we've heard so far from this person. So yeah, possibly, but you don't know for certain. I don't even know what Antifa is. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know what Antifa is. But yeah, let me know what you guys think.
That they're assigning themselves a party to assimilate with, but that doesn't necessarily. It doesn't account for leftist values, because the leftist.
So let me ask you, because I don't want to waste too much time on this. How would you curb political violence, right? The whole reason for crime statistics is a risk assessment to see who's most likely to be victimized and prevent it in the future. I get that you're in college, and I understand that things can be kind of nebulous or abstract, but there are real people dying, right? And some of them are people I've known, sitting in this exact. Okay. So where is the violence coming from in the country right now when you take into account Charlie Kirk? I mean, what just happened here down the road at ICE, or Alvarado, I'm not sure how it's pronounced as well. We haven't gone more than 3 days in the last 3 weeks without significant acts of self-identified leftist terrorism. How would you curb it? if you're going to curb political violence, and it seems like you're not willing to say that anything is political within the paradigm as it's universally recognized, what would you do?
I think people need to get off social media. They're becoming radicalized through that.
Okay.
How much time can you spend on TikTok, like, cycling through the same, like, violent ideologies? Because conservatives can have
I'm banned from TikTok because I said Xi Jinping has a small penis, so that's the Communist Party.
TikTok. I can say Instagram as well.
No, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I agree that social media can be very toxic, but we're seeing real acts of violence. So assuming that you can't wave your magic wand and ban all social media.
Are you meaning in terms of like policies? Like if I had a seat in...
Well, we need to identify the problem. Where do you think the political violence is coming from more right now?
I think on a global scale...
In the United States.
Both.
In the United States.
In the United States, I can't speak on the United States because I don't think it's just the United States.
No, but that's what the conversation is today.
Right.
So if you don't want to, that's okay. But I appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate the disagreement respectfully. You're never going to get me to say that the Communist Chinese Party is right wing.
So who do you guys think won this debate? Because yes, it was a debate between a college student and Stephen Crowder. And I know people get upset when people debate college students, but think about what college actually is. College is a place that people go to become elite thinkers in specific subjects. It's the only time in life where your only job really is to learn information. So you have much more time to actually learn information than someone who works 9 to 5 or who, I don't know, raises kids. But let me know what you guys think about this. My name is LFR Jojo, and I'll see you next time.